Howdy folks, hope you're all having a good one, and welcome back to World of Tanks with the Mighty Jingles. Today's battle, starring Sergeant Broken Rubber, and yes, we have seen him before, in the American Tier 10 medium tank, the T95E6, or just the E6, is... Well, I don't want to spoil anything, but I almost made this an episode of the Game of Thrones. Almost, but not quite. I decided against it in the end because, well, the losing team doesn't really throw it, they just kind of get comprehensively outplayed. So in that regard, nobody's really throwing anything. I realise this may qualify as something of a spoiler, but, well, I haven't told you which team loses yet, have I? So, wait and see. So anyway, Sergeant Broken Rubber and the E6. I want to say this is a good Tier 10 medium tank, except it wouldn't be true, because it isn't. It's a very good Tier 10 heavy tank gun mounted in a fairly mediocre Tier 10 medium tank hull. Oh, if you're wondering what Sergeant Broken Rubber's doing in this bush here on Prokhorovka, don't worry, well, a couple of things. It's not the light tank spotting bush, that's one grid square further to the south. You know, he's not that dumb, especially given the absolutely horrible camouflage characteristics of this tank. It really is shockingly bad. There are heavy tanks that get better camo than the T95E6. Remember, this is a medium, even though it does kind of have a heavy tank gun. But the reason the good sergeant is up here trying to spot targets is because there is not a single light tank, armoured car, no scouts of any description in this entire battle. Oh, Aurorix 78, where were you when this team needed you? Also, take a look at the map. I mean, the first couple of minutes of this battle are going to be exceptionally dull, with very little actually happening for Sergeant Broken Rubber, because, well, he's not quite brave. When I say brave, I've been suicidal enough to advance to the next bush one grid square further to the south because he's not in a light tank, and that would get him killed. Which means, aside from the bat chat down the middle of the road, slightly further to the east, there's basically nobody spotting anything. And the enemy team down on that end of the map are equally cagey about moving forward and spotting anything up here. And they have an excellent reason for that. Why bother? Why take the risk when they don't need to? Because if you take a look at the map, you can see that Sergeant Broken Rubber's entire team, with the exception of one extremely brave Object 430, has completely abandoned the eastern side of the map. They've given up the hill to the enemy team. And the Object 430 probably doesn't want to be there, but somebody needs to spot them coming off that hill in order to give the team the slimmest of slim chances to not get completely outflanked and rolled up when the enemy team reach the top of the hill, realise, wow, this is completely undefended, and then roll down the hill and roll up the flank from the east. And in fact, it's already happening, with the charge being led by an enemy UDES-15 spotted by the Object 430. The question is, do any of the campers on the railway line, on the wrong side of the railway line, actually have any shots? As the rest of the enemy team on top of the hill comes swarming down the other side. And I'm pretty sure the answer to that is no. So, while Sergeant Broken Rubber is taking some shots at the enemy T10 over there, because it's the only thing visible for him to shoot at, that Object 430 is now fighting for his life against at least 4 enemy tanks, and those are just the ones that he can see. The second that Object 430 goes down, this team is buggered. And the hilarious thing about this, and of course when I say hilarious, because we've all been in that Object 430 situation, what I actually mean is tragic, is that despite the fact that right now he is the only member of his team in the right place at the right time doing the right thing, because he's the only member of the team doing it, he's going to die horribly, and he will probably suffer for it on the post-battle results screen by hardly earning any experience or credits. And there he goes, he's dead. And now it's basically all over for Sergeant Broken Rubber's team. His entire team are now caught in one corner of the map. The enemy team have rolled down off the hill. They're now sweeping west. They're going to get onto the opposite side of the railway embankment, where they can proximity spot all the campers on the other side of the railway embankment and then Sergeant Broken Rubber's team are caught in a crossfire, and then, and only then, all of the heavies and tank destroyers down to the south of Sergeant Broken Rubber's team can then push north and just close the jaws of the trap. If you're ever on Prokhorovka and your team occupied this position, you 100% deserve to lose. You see on the minimap, amongst others, the enemy Progetto 46, right at the north, right on the other side of the railway line. Proximity spotting everybody camping the other side of the railway line, just sitting there, chilling out, farming, spotting damage on the friendly members of Sergeant Broken Rubber's team cowering on the other side. Not sure who they think is going to remove those enemy tanks on the eastern side of the embankment for them. The entire team are over here. Nobody has line of sight on any of them. Enemy Progetto there, spot in the middle. Friendly Batchat, actually not in an awful position until he gets spotted. At which point, he's basically a dead man. And I am expecting the enemy tank destroyers, who are undoubtedly camped down the southern end of the road, now that the rest of their team is starting to push over that railway embankment, I am expecting those enemy tank destroyers and whatever else is down there to start moving up. Sergeant Broken Rubber just got spotted. This position is becoming increasingly untenable. It's a shame, because as long as the flank's secure and you're not getting crossfired, it's actually a decent position for the E6. I said it's a very good heavy tank gun mounted in a mediocre medium tank hull. The gun, it's a 120mm gun. 400 average damage, good penetration, very good aiming time, accuracy, not great, but definitely not bad either. But it's got a very, very good rate of fire. And while the hull armour is disastrously bad, the mobility's good, and the turret armour, at least from the front, is pretty good. With 9 degrees of gun depression. Unfortunately, it does have a huge weak spot, the machine gun turret on the top, which is basically unarmoured. So you don't want to be getting close. But from this kind of range, you can make the gun depression work, because that machine gun turret is very, very difficult to hit with any degree of accuracy from more than 150 so metres away. The E6 is basically good at two things, and two things only. It's good at sniping. Not great at sniping, but certainly at least good. The accuracy of the gun, .38, isn't good enough for it to be a great sniper. But .38 is good enough that you can at least expect to hit the target, even if you can't be expected to hit any weak spots at ranges of 200 metres or more. And the penetration on the gun is good enough that generally just hitting the target is probably going to be enough. And if by some chance you don't hit the target, the rate of fire is excellent, so just wait a couple of seconds and have another go. But you kind of have to do this at range, because of that machine gun turret on the top. You really cannot afford to get that thing hit. And the turret rotation is slow enough that at medium to short range, you can't really hide the machine gun turret from return fire. So the one thing that this tank is good at is sniping. The other thing, while it is most definitely not a brawler, because the hull armour is just awfully bad, it's pretty good at the old hit and run. Because it hits hard, it's a 400 average damage gun, and with a top speed of 56 kilometers per hour, which is pretty good for a medium, it's got the ability to swoop in on any unaware or otherwise occupied enemies, preferably on low health, that it can one shot with this 400 alpha damage 120mm gun, and then get out again before they, or any of their friends, are able to do anything about it. This is obviously an extremely risky tactic. Not just because this thing appears to get its tracks blown off if anything so much as sneezes in its general direction. He's just had his tracks. That's 3 times in less than a minute. Used the repair kit on the first one and then got tracked again twice in further success. I mean, yeah, you don't want to get shot at in this thing. I mean, a T-95 E6 who leaps out of cover on a wounded enemy tank going, "Ha-ha, surprise, it's me," and then gets its tracks blown off is a very, very unhappy T-95 E6. You know, this isn't actually as bad as it looks. They're only 2 kills behind, and the hit point difference between the two teams is negligible. And Sergeant Broken Rubber's team does have a Death Star. They do have the old FV215B with a 183mm gun. Oh, the one other downside, by the way, because not everything about the 120mm gun on Sergeant Broken Rubber's tank is amazing. I mean, it is very, very good. The accuracy isn't great, but it's not terrible. But it only comes with 36 rounds of ammunition, and it does have a very fast rate of fire. He's only got 13 shots left. I mean, that should be enough to deal with the estimated 3,600 remaining hit points on the enemy team. But I'll guarantee you they've got enough ammo left to finish him. Because this thing really does not like getting shot at. And I don't think he's going to have a lot of success sitting around waiting for the Death Star to go and spot targets for him. I mean, the fact that the Death Star is still alive on the team is almost certainly the only thing that's prevented the rest of the enemy from already overrunning this corner of the map where the last three of them are camped up. But there's no way the Death Star is going to go out spotting targets for him, so while I'm sure Sergeant Broken Rubber is not looking forward to doing this, he does realise that he has to do it, so he asks the Death Star to back him up, and he goes looking for targets. This is going to hurt. Oh, yeah, there's one. There's two, there's three. Well, I found them. Lost all my health doing it. Sure would be nice if somebody could shoot back. And of course, nobody's shooting back. So that was a whole lot of damage taken for absolutely nothing. Yay! I mean, the thing is, the difference in hit points between these two teams is nothing that a tank like the Death Star cannot take care of by simply hitting something once. And yet, it's not the Death Star who's shooting and hitting the available targets. He is in fact simply getting shot at. I don't think I've even heard his gun go off. It's fairly distinctive, you can't miss it. It sounds like the sun coughing. Oh, there it goes, and it missed. What are you going to do? Apparently everything. Can't rely on your teammates to do shit. Probably something that the Object 430 was thinking at the beginning of the battle. Meanwhile, Sergeant Broken Rubber's doing the hippy shake and getting the hell out of Dodge. He's thinking maybe the 212A back there would be well advised to do the same. And in fact suggests that he does exactly that. I mean, he shouldn't have had to say anything, it should have been bloody obvious, but while he's getting kicked to death by the remainder of the enemy team, because you don't want to be sitting there, sunshine, Sergeant Broken Rubber at least gets the opportunity, and that second shot was very, very nice, to farm a little bit more damage. The 212A is there in chat going, oh my god, what did you think was going to happen? And you were told, the good sergeant did warn him. You shouldn't have needed to warn him, it should have been bloody obvious that sitting in that spot you were going to get overrun and destroyed, but well, apparently some people just do need to be told. And even then they whine and act like nobody could have predicted it was going to happen. Well, Sergeant Broken Rubber just predicted that if he stayed in that spot he would have suffered the same fate as the 212A. So while the, the Scorpion is hopefully at least combing the bushes looking for him, oh, and there's 2 minutes left. He's heading down here to try to get the enemy artillery. Now, if the Scorpion was paying attention to the direction that the last two hits it took came from, it should have been able to figure out that Sergeant Broken Rubber has in fact ducked over the railway embankment and is probably doing exactly this. And at least two members of the enemy team are smart enough to have figured that out. But there's always one, isn't there? In 3, 2, there he is. And because he can't afford to take another hit any more than the enemy Scorpion can, and there is still one enemy artillery piece in play, immediately ducks back over the embankment, safe from direct line of fire. And no shots from the Batchat 15558. And that's an auto-loading artillery. So that has to mean that he's on the move. Because if he was parked and stationary anywhere, there would have been shots incoming the second he popped up and nailed the enemy M53. But he didn't, which must mean he's run north. So that could be him or the Scorpion in the cap circle. The thing is, the enemy team are not going to win by capping here, because there's only 40 seconds of this battle left, and it's going to take more than a minute to win by capping with one tank in the cap circle. In fact, I think it's now even too late, even if they get a second tank in the cap circle. And with less than 30 seconds left, Sergeant Broken Rubber has no time to do anything subtle other than just make a beeline straight for the... oh dear. And yet, with 20 seconds remaining, it will take the two of them 24 seconds to win by capping. So the two of them sitting in the cap circle, 4 seconds too late, has achieved nothing other than to guarantee that Sergeant Broken Rubber knows exactly where to find the two of them, sitting in open ground with no cover, getting shot at by a medium tank with superior view range. So that's an extremely unlikely victory for Sergeant Broken Rubber, with only 4 rounds of ammunition left at the end of the battle, by the way, in the American Tier 10 medium tank, the T95 E6. I hope you all enjoyed it, and as always, take care, and I'll catch you next time.